Tell us as these people come in, tell us a little bit about what's hanging on the wall back there, so they get a feel for Chip.
Oh, so yeah, interesting story. So this guitar right here, I bought with my graduation money in 1990. It's in my will to be handed down to my son. It's now never allowed to be sold. So that's really cool. And then the one next to it is another interesting story. I lost a dear friend of mine about a year ago, Chris McLaurin, and Chris and I got bonus checks. We worked for the same company at the same time and walked into a guitar shop here in Franklin. And he bought that guitar on the same day I bought another one of my guitars. And then when he passed, I talked to his wife, and because I always had first right of refusal on it. I'm like, that's going to come stay with me, and same thing. It's so so that's what that one's about. So nice little mementos.
And you played in bands for a long time, right?
Yep, been playing bands for a while now. Interestingly enough, I left my last band in February of 2020, which who knew, but kind of ironic timing with that. And actually put in my one-page personal plan last week to get back on stage this year and find another group to go start playing with.
So as people are coming in, Chip Gallent's with us today. He's going to talk to us a little bit about hiring for team fit first and thinking about how a team operates together before skill sets. And much like a band, Chip, you can have the best drummer, the best vocalist, the best guitar player, and it doesn't matter if they don't play well together.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the first articles I wrote for Petra was 8 things I learned about business by being in a band, and that was one of those things.
Absolutely. And the same thing is true in business, and the same thing is true in life. You got to surround yourself with people that's got your back and, kind of play off the same sheet of music. So I'm going to turn it over to you so we don't take any additional time. Looks like the room's filling up. You've got the controls, my friend, and I appreciate you running with us today.
Perfect. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I want to talk about a subject that is very, very near and dear to me, and one I've been having a lot of conversations around with the companies that I get to coach, and it's this idea of hiring for team fit first. And you'll see as I talk about this subject, I do think that one of the things we need to reverse in our hiring process is we often go to team fit last. But I'm going to hold that for a second and tell you a little bit about me. My name is Chip Gallent. I am a coach here at Petra Coach. I've been an entrepreneur and executive, run a publicly traded business, made a lot of money along the way for my companies and the people that I've worked for. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that won a lot of culture awards along the way. I've been coaching here at Petra since 2018, and I really view this as my time to give back to the community and the business community that I've been very fortunate to have been a part of. And, alumnus, Scaling Up Certified Entrepreneur Coach, I'm Certified Master Coach. And as of August 2020, I'm Penny's dad. So this is a picture of our little puppy, Penny, who came to us in August. And this actually is the first day that she showed up at the house. So I see that and I just kind of go, nice memory there. So today's objective, here's what I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to walk away from here today. And that is a different perspective on how we can go and look at the people we're hiring and begin with the idea of assessing team fit first before we get into all those other things. There's a lot to the hiring process. It's complicated. And we are seeing now that the whole jobs market is flip-flopping and is much different than it was pre-COVID. There seem to be a lot of people out there and a lot of jobs as well. So finding that right person is so critical. And I'm going to give you a few tools to help you, as well as some tools to go teach your team how you can assess team fit in a much better way, in my opinion. So take some notes, and we will make this information available after the fact, so you'll have access to it on the backside. So I want to ask you a question. How many of you have hired the perfect candidate on paper before? And I'm looking at you guys in the room. Definitely some hands being raised, right? We always look there and we talk about, oh my gosh, this perfect resume came in. Everything looks perfect. Well, then how many of you have fired the perfect candidate quickly? Right? A lot of hands being raised out there. It's so true. We see this time after time again. Why? And I really do believe the answer to that question is we're doing the order of questioning and hiring wrong. And I firmly believe, as I've said so already, if we start with team fit first, we are going to get so much further and better candidates to then get through to the assessment phase when we look at skill and and qualifications and all those other things. But if we don't let anyone into the funnel who hasn't first met the team fit qualification, then we're doing a disservice to our team. So start there. You want to assess the team fit first before you dig into their experience and qualifications and talent. It's just, I see it time after time again. And anytime we're dealing with this, when we have a member or an organization we're coaching who's having trouble with hiring, it usually comes down to the team fit question. So why? Why is team fit so important when we're looking at hiring? If you're a fan of top grading, and we are here, we teach this a lot, we coach around it, the cost of a mishire is 5 to 27 times the cost of their annual salary. There's much more to this from a cost standpoint to you as an organization than you realize. Not only we're talking about the cost of hiring, now you have the cost of training, you have the actual salary and what you've paid that person, you have the opportunity cost of their anticipated earnings for the organization over the next year. And then you also, on the flip side, have the cost of the team coming back in to take over and fill in the gaps of where this person has been let off. So the true cost is way, way more than you really think it is. And if you're a fan of top grading, we're not going to get into that much today. You'll understand that when you look at that methodology and go the full extent and go all the way in with top grading, it's going to increase your odds of hiring those A players up to you get about an 80% chance of getting an A player in the door. And this is just a piece of that. And this is my opinion. I really feel that the more often we miss on fit than we do on the talent. I see it time and time again when we're talking and I'm coaching my CEOs, or our CEOs, around this concept. There's a lot of this as it relates to fit that was missed. So I want to talk about this in a minute and just make sure that you understand this concept. I'm not advocating you miss out or you skip the process where you go through and you assess talent and skill and experience, and also the opportunity to go and talk to other people who have worked with those candidates you have. Just do that second. Get into the fit side of things first. And I also want you to bring more people into this. When we look at bringing in people, whether it's people on staff here at Petra Coach, accountability coaches, you're going to go through a bunch of interviews. And it's really important to us that we really take the time to assess fit, because we believe that because we're good at what we do, there's a lot of this we can teach if they don't have it. The fit is so incredibly important though. So how do we do this? Okay. I'm going to show you 5 steps on how you can do a much better job first focusing on team fit for the candidates walking in your door. And this is the first step. And I see this so often and I coach around this. The first step is to just be quiet. One of the things I observe when I'm talking to people about hiring is that they're actually selling. And I'm guilty of this. I did this in my past. Before I truly learned and understood these things, I would spend the majority of the time in an initial interview selling when I should have been interviewing. Your job is to get them talking. We talk too much. Use the 80-20 rule. I firmly believe in an interview setting that you need to be talking 20% of the time. Learn how to ask good and open-ended questions so that you can understand more about that person sitting across for you, whether it's on the screen or on the phone or in person for that matter. Let them do the talking. It's your opportunity to interview them. They are going to tell you so many things about themselves when you ask the right questions. So that's the first step. And if you have any questions along the way, I see something popping up here. So I'm going to go back to you, Dave. You said, are you saying that if the new hire is not working out, maybe more due to misfit rather than the talent? It depends. I found more often than not, it is a team misfit. And I'm going to talk to you about how we can look at that a little in just a second. But more often than not, what it is it's core value misfit. They don't fit your values. Sometimes it is talent. Sometimes they've miscast themselves and don't have the skills that they say they do. It happens. But more often than not, my experience with this is that it is a misfit in terms of being on a team. So, second step in this process, core values are so important to assessing team fit. If you don't happen to have them and you want to find out more about them, just send me an email, chip@petracoach.com. I'll be happy to talk to you about core values, but you got to have that first, and hopefully you do. But what I want to know, and I do this for different clients that I work with, is does this candidate understand what a core value is? Have they ever truly been in an organization where core values have been what we call alive? A lot of times people will say they are, and I'll ask the question, okay, well, how often do people refer to them? And you'd be surprised, the majority of the time it's, oh yeah, during the annual meeting, somebody will bring it up. So I then follow up with a question. Well, if you believe your core values were alive, can you recite them? Can you recall them from memory and tell me what they were? And then I'm going to give them an opportunity to understand, look, you may or may not have really been in an organization that has had the opportunity to have core values alive in it. But this is what it means to us. These are a set of non-negotiable rules that are the cornerstones of our culture. And this is how we do what we do. This is secret sauce. And so I want to give them an understanding of that. So that's the second step. The third step is then go through and share your core values one at a time. And so our first core value at Petra Coach is there is no try, only do. And I would ask the candidate this first question here. Tell me what you think that means. Again, open-ended. I want to hear them think on their feet. This is an interview that they cannot prepare for. Go in, ask them this. What does it mean? Tell me what you think it means. And then if they're off, that's completely okay. What I want to see them do actually in this interview is think on their feet. So if they're off from what the definition is, then I'll come back and have that conversation. Well, what it really means to us is this. Does that make better sense? Have that kind of running dialogue with them. And then I'm going to move on to the next question that's part of this section. Tell me about a time in your life where you had to demonstrate that core value in great detail. I want to hear them tell stories about themselves. I want to hear them put themselves in what they think that core value means. And you will be amazed what the candidate will open up and share with you. It's a really important step. And we want to go through these one by one. If you've got 5 core values, you're going to do 5 rounds of this because I want to hear them tell me what they think they mean. And I want them to find a time in their life that they can relate that to and how they addressed it. Now, every once in a while, you'll get a person or candidate in this process who will start to tell you a story about someone else. And it's your job to redirect them back to the question. I was like, I want to hear about you. Tell me about a time in your life where you had to demonstrate what this core value means, and tell me in great detail. So it's going to give you a basis for having a lot of information come across, and you get to see them think on their feet. I'm also listening when they're talking about those or telling those stories for just little cues, and I'm writing little notes. I'm writing, and they're going to say words and phrases that are going to either give you an opportunity to kind of upgrade them in the process, think about taking them through, or they're going to downgrade themselves. But let their stories do that for you. Don't let your own opinions of them dissuade or persuade you one way or another. React to it. Okay. So now we get down to step number 4. And that is one of my favorite questions. And I have searched and searched for where this came from, and I can't find it. But anyway, I love this question. We're down to 2 finalists, and you're one of them. We then decide to go with the other candidate. Why did we do that? And this question is one of those that nobody can prepare for. They might have heard it before, but even still, it always pushes people back in having to think. And what it's going to tell you is how they really feel about themselves. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Primarily their weaknesses. It's also going to give you another opportunity to see them react and to think on their feet. All right. So as we're getting into this and we're asking these questions, it is your job to then be reading them, looking at their body language, seeing how they react. How are they responding to the questions? Are they truly opening up and being vulnerable about who they really are? Now, I've had this happen recently twice with two candidates that I was interviewing for one of my clients. And it was interesting. I was asked this one gentleman this question, and he proceeded to tell me every weakness he had. And it was he was putting on display the confidence the lack of confidence he had in himself. And it was very telling how he then reacted and how that made me perceive who he was in the context of a team fit. I had another gentleman that I was interviewing, and it went the totally other way, which told me a lot about him and his character and who he was. And he responded, he's just said off the cuff, hey, if someone else beat me out for this, I need to go shake their hand. I need to meet them because I can learn something from them. And I love that response because and that response to this single question told me much more about who this person was deep down in his soul than any other thing that I could have asked. And that's what we were looking for are these people willing to be vulnerable? And what are they willing to tell you about themselves? Okay. So I want to pause for a second. And if you have any questions, you can go down in the chat or the Q&A in the bottom and type it in, and I'll see if there's anything I can answer for you so far along the way. Anyone? You can also raise your hand and I can open it up for you to talk if that's the case. Any questions? All right. Well, we'll keep going. Andy, if you have anything to pop in, please hop in and join and throw in some color. Lastly, so this is step number 5. Okay. This is the assessment. Now, I want you to take this methodology, this little framework, and go teach your team how to do this as well. It's really important that we get a lot of the team involved. If you're coming here and you're wanting to work at Petra Coach, you're going to probably be somewhere in 18 to 20 different interviews. And this is a methodology that we use to collect information back from the team, as well as this is for you to then ask these questions of yourself if you're the primary interviewer with the candidate. So, number 1, can they do the work? You're going to get a lot of information as they're telling their stories about themselves, and you're assessing the information that they give back to you from the core values. You're going to get a lot of information that's going to give you an indicator where you think they are on a scale of 0 to 10. Can they do the work? So answer that and write yourself a number down and be really, really honest with yourself about what you think the response to that is. Number 2, will they do the work? It's one thing if they can. It's another thing, will they? And put that down, 0 to 10. Assess that, score it. And then lastly, the thing we're here for, team fit. Are they going to fit in here at your organization? 0 to 10. And when we do this, we get those scores, we accumulate them. Everyone has the same assessment that we use when we're talking to candidates to come into our doors or into our organization. And we send these 3 scores to whomever the primary is. Okay, Emily has asked the question, what's the difference between can they and will they? It's just assessing their enthusiasm for the job versus their skills. Could you speak more on that? Absolutely, Emily, thank you. Great question. So some of it's attitude, some of it's enthusiasm, some of it's their approach. So certainly, yes, it is a piece of it is assessing their enthusiasm for the job. It also gives you an opportunity to really think and take the information in that you're talking about when they're telling their core value stories about what they did and how they demonstrated those values. You're going to get a feel for them, right? Can they do the work? Is the first thing. And you're going to get a feel for it. And more often than not, it's going to be a gut feeling. Can they do it versus will they do it? And you've seen this time and time again. The worst phrase you can say to me is, "That's not my job," and it's really, to me, a great indicator, or it's the essence of what we're looking for here. Can they do it and will they do it are 2 different things. And some of it's attitude, some of it's ego, some of it's skill, some of it is certainly enthusiasm. But there is a very fine line between the 2. And it generally is going to be really come back to what their character is. Do they think they're above it? Do they think they're not above anything? Are they just people who are willing to go all in and focus on getting the thing done, irrespective of who gets credit for it, irrespective of what the job is? And this is that fine line between those 2 areas, right? One of I have an opportunity to coach a great company down in New Orleans, and one of their core values is we sweep the floors. And the story came from the gentleman who was the founder. Company's called Goody Construction down in New Orleans, and Mr. Goody was out there the day that the World War II museum opened in New Orleans, and he just happened to have a TV crew there, and they saw this gentleman sweeping the sidewalk out in front of the museum. And here's the founder of the organization, CEO, prominent businessman in New Orleans, multi-million-dollar company, and he's sweeping the floor. And they asked him, like, hey, what are you doing here? And it's like, I'm with Goody Construction, and just we saw there was a little cleanup to do, and picked up a broom and came out here and swept. Like, well, what are you? And I was like, I'm the owner. And the reporter, and he tells the story. They're like, we didn't expect you. You surely could have gotten somebody else to got here. But they're like, no, needed being done. I picked up the broom and started sweeping the sidewalk. And that's the difference between can they do it and will they do it? Of course, he could. Obviously, anyone can pick up a broom. But the fact that they did do it, that's what we really want to find out. Hopefully that answers your question there, Emily. And then back on team fit, 0 to 10. Now, this is the most important thing I will tell you is when you're doing this assessment, what you want to make sure is there's no explanation. Put your explanation in the score. And what it's going to help you do as a leader is this information is going to come back to you. And I've seen people take it in and build a spreadsheet with it and look at all the information and take that in and then start to rank them. However, what I will tell you is if there's anything on there that's less than an 8, you probably need to move on from that person. Team fit is going to be questionable there if with any of those 3 points, because what we really want to look for is how can we fill the funnel. Again, going back to what I said in the beginning, how do you fill the funnel with team fit first? Then we can go in and assess skill and experience and talk to other people who have worked with those folks. Fill the funnel with team fit first. And by using this assessment model here, you're going to be able to get all that data back from your team. And all you need is 3 numbers. Everybody knows what they are. Put the explanation in the numbers and then have many more people than you would normally think do these assessments. Excuse me. Okay. Any more questions? Feel free to pop them in down in the Q&A. All right. So again, I've said this, coach your team. Go put the team through mock interviews. I can't tell you how many people think they know how to interview, and it is, in fact, the opposite. They don't know. I remember when I was first running my companies, the model that I had for interviewing was this. I'm going to make a decision in the first 3 minutes whether or not I like the person, I want to hire them. And then I'm going to spend the next 57 minutes of the interview justifying my decision. Right? We think what we learned about hiring came from dating. And that's how we date people. But it is so much more. Go coach and teach your team how to do this. Let the really good people work on the skill and the experience and the other assessments. But these things around team fit, you have an opportunity to bring your team in and help you make a better decision. And what's going to happen is as your core values take root and your people get better and better at this, the team is going to then begin to defend your culture in ways that you can't and you have been able to in the past. And you want it hard for people to get through those doors. That means you're going to get better and better candidates. And when the team takes over the culture and starts defending it, and the barrier, the threshold to get through as it relates to team fit is so instilled in the organization, on the backside of that, your candidates are going to be much better fit for you to then go assess the other things. So do it, coach it, do some mock sessions, walk people through the methodology, help teach your team how to be better interviewers and focus in just on this team fit first. Then you can go learn the other skills. Because it's about getting the right candidate for you. And as Andy said in the beginning, gosh, you want to see some dysfunction? I could been a lot of bands where it just didn't work. And it's obvious very, very quickly. Any questions? Anything? Just pop them in. Okie doke. Now, here's my contact information. I will make sure you have this. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free. If you want to email me, it's chip@petracoach.com. It's you can call or text me. My cell phone is right there at on the screen. You can pop a picture of this. I'm happy to answer any questions anytime. And I'm going to go to a Q&A here in just a second and see if there's anything else that I can talk to you about as it relates to this subject, because I'm very passionate about it. It's been amazing to me in the last, really since the beginning of the year, how prevalent this thing is in the organizations that we're coaching. Finding those right people. And look, you got to remember, going back to really pre-COVID, coming out of 2019 in the first quarter of 2020, think about the hiring landscape that we were dealing with. We were having a tough time finding candidates. And in a lot of instances, we had to take people that we really, the best thing was go recruit them. And so those people who came in from referrals are probably going to be a much better initial fit. We still have to assess that. But coming out of that into the landscape we have now, where there are a lot of companies who are coming back, we've got a lot of open positions and a lot of people out in the market who are looking to jump. Maybe they've been in a business organization that was negatively affected by COVID. That's going to happen. So this is even more important now as it relates to hiring. Get the fit right on the front end, and then do the other assessments. Okay. Questions? I'm open. I'm here. We're here for another few minutes. I want to take the time to answer anything you have. If you have them, please go into the Q&A down below, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this, or go back and clarify anything.
Spend a minute talking about organizations over time mess this up. Like they get somebody in that's actually not a team fit. They looked really good in the resume, or they talked a good game. They got in, they're not performing. What is the process? Or we all know it's kind of difficult. It's really difficult to get people out once you got them in. So talk a little bit about what you've seen in maybe business that might help somebody get someone out that they've discovered is not a good team fit.
So there are a number of things we use on this. Number one, we have a tool called the talent assessment. If you go to petracoach.com under Take Action Docs, you'll see and you can look for talent assessment. It'll give you a methodology for looking at that current person and assessing them in relation to their core value scores. And where that would rank on a 0. You average out the scores, you look at all the core values, rate them 0 to 10, you average that score, you're going to get a number, and you're going to plot that on the vertical axis of the talent assessment. Then you look at them from a productivity standpoint. 0 to 10, how productive, not how busy, how productive are they? And then you look at that, and that's one thing to give you a much better, more concrete way of looking at, or more of a quantitative way to look at where they fit. And then you got to have a real conversation. More often than not, they're going to be in the B2C player box, which is down in the lower right-hand quadrant, or they're going to be in the C player box. And you need data. A lot of times we think because people are good producers, we're willing to be more tolerant of them. But what I will tell you is they are running off more people than they're helping you keep. So that's one thing to look at. Two other questions that I love to ask when I'm dealing with this situation is, what would you do if you had 10 of them? It's a great validator for, do we need to get this person out? And in that context, you're only going to answer, it's really by looking at it in the context of 10, it helps you take the situation to the extreme. Oh my gosh, I'd blow my brains out. Sorry, no pun intended there. I'd go crazy. Or we would thrive. It's going to help you make that assessment. But more often than not, what you have to do is just pull the trigger. You have to get those people who are not great fits in the organization out, because they're terrorizing your business. They're terrorizing your great people. They just have to go. And a lot of times, the other thing I do is a lot of coaching around that. I'll get a call from a CEO that I'm working with, and it's like, I don't know about this person. Tell me what to do. Help coach me through the process. I'm like, and I'll ask them these questions, right? What would you do if you had 10 of them? Would you enthusiastically rehire them for the same position? They're all great questions to help you qualify what you really, really need to do. Anything else to add to that, Andy?
No, I think that's good from just an evaluation standpoint. How do you have that conversation, or what does it look like? Do you just walk in and let somebody go? Do you wait until you find someone to replace them? What moves do you make? And then you've got a question from Vanessa in here.
Yeah, so I'd say it depends. There are a lot of variables into that as to what to do and how to do it. I like having a sit down with that individual and go, look, here's what I see. Here's what's not happening. What we have right now, the way you're not fitting in on this team is that we've got some core value violations we need to talk through. We need to reassess whether or not you are a fit for us, and you need to be part of that. So here's what I expect in the next 2 weeks. I need to see a marketed improvement on the way you do what you do, the way you interact with a team, the way you involve yourself in our culture. If not, I'm just telling you now, do not be surprised if we invite you to go be successful somewhere else. So set them up. Sometimes people just need a good shaking, right? They may not realize it. More often than not, they do. And more often than not, they're looking to get terminated rather than asking to leave themselves. So they're just waiting. They're waiting for you. And so I would have that really difficult conversation. I need to see improvement in 2 weeks. Otherwise, just don't be surprised. Sometimes, and this is a rare instance, but sometimes they just need a different role. If they're a C player in this role, maybe we need to go find a way in our organization for them to be an A player by doing something it's going to be they'll be a lot happier with. And it could be that. It might be a role change. It just depends. But more often than not, especially early on, I'm a big fan, fail fast. If they come in and it's just a noticeable misfit, get them out. Get them out. It's the most important thing you can do, because really, as the leader of the organization, if you're the CEO out there, you are the keeper of the culture. That is your baby, and you need to nurture it, and you need to be very intentional about your direction and what you're willing to do to help it thrive and survive. Vanessa, we have found, this is your question, we have found with virtual recruiting new challenges because you don't have some of the body language cues or senses for what they're like in person. Do you have any advice or stories on virtual recruiting and how we can navigate? Couple of things that you can do there, Vanessa. This is another instance where I think quantity of interviews is going to be at your is going to help support this for you. Have more people talk to them, even if it's virtual. So get more input. Don't just use 1 or 2 people's perspective. Have 10 people do an interview. If they want the job, they'll go through all that. And I think it's also the flip side of that is demonstrating to your candidates that the culture fit is this important. The fact that they're going to have them talk to so many different people, I think is a good representation of how you view your culture. So it has an additional message there as well. So I think more interviews with more people and get those assessments from them. Get them more read. Another thing there are 2 other things I can do. If depending on the role, I would fly out to meet them. Go meet them in person. Go meet them, and you can go in and out, and you can do it safely. You can go outside. I think, hey, just go. Another thing you can do, I also think, is impromptu. So if you go and let's say you just pull them up, call them at 6 o'clock on a Friday and see how they respond, or get them on use FaceTime or send them a Zoom and say, hey, I've got a couple of questions on, can you hop on in 10 minutes? See how they react to those things when it's a little bit out of, it's not as scripted. They can't anticipate those things. Get them into those situations where you have to see their true colors come out. And if it were in person, you would be doing this more often and taking them to dinner, see how they treat the staff. See, do they hold doors open for people? There's all kinds of little clues, but I do think there's some opportunity in terms of this, the frequency or the quantity. That's going to be your best bet there.
Yeah, I agree with the multiple people talking to them. People see stuff that you don't see because you're kind of engaged in the Q&A that's going on, especially when it's on video and you're not watching the entire thing. I like the idea of meeting them in person, obviously, and watching how they treat people. I always watch. I'm somebody who can't walk down the street at all without picking up trash on the side of the street. Like I'm going to pick it up and put it in my pocket and throw it away somewhere else. Kind of seeing how they react to that, or how they treat a waiter or a waitress, or even how they come into the office and treat people in the office. What about, I've had a lot of C-level executives or higher end performing roles where they will require that you have dinner with them and, their spouse or significant other. So it's, to get to know them on a personal level. Talk about that. And then also talk about group interviews. So
yeah. And I was going to add, as you were talking about that, I think doing a group interview virtually where you've got more eyes on them and they are in fact interacting with more eyes on the screen might open you up to some more opportunity to get some body language. But also, I mean, as they are going up higher in the organization, you really want to see how they behave socially. Who you are anywhere is who you are everywhere. We like to say that around here. And it's so important to see how that interaction is happening. You need to go to dinner with them. You need to go and visit and get to know their spouse or partner. It's really, really, really critical. And looking at all that, you just want exposure to them. You want to see, because again, it's much like this, the idea behind this interview. Give them opportunities to react. That will tell you more about who they are than anything that's coming out of their mouth. And when I'm coaching around interviewing, I tell people all the time, I'm really not interested in the answers. I'm interested more in how they react to the questions. A lot of these questions, if you go back to the beginning of this, they're just open-ended. There's no wrong answers, but the way they answer will be the cue to tell you how they're going to fit, who they are, can they do the work, will they do the work, and it's pretty universal from top to bottom. Obviously, if you're hiring in at the executive team level, you want to spend more time with them to really assess who they are and get a better feel for who they are as a human. That only then contributes to their fit or lack of fit in the organization long term. Any other questions out there?
I don't see any coming in, buddy. Looks like you've covered most of this. Being team fit being the number one thing they need to look for. And then, I always say, look, you can teach skills. All the skills in the world can be taught. But you can't teach somebody to be a good team fit. They're either going to fit in or they're not going to fit in.
Absolutely. They either are a fit or they are not. There's not a lot of gray area. That's the truth. So if you take nothing from this, from me, focus on team fit first. Once they kind of cross that chasm, then you move into the other stuff. Typically, we're seeing a lot of people who are doing the skill and experience assessment first before they get to fit. And I'm even seeing, it means people get down to the wire and like, oh my gosh, we don't know how are they going to be as a teammate here. And I'm like, you've gone to all this extent and you haven't, that's the most important thing. Have them, if they can't pass the team fit test first, don't allow them into your queue. It's the single best thing that I can teach you today, and I hope you'll take that. And remember, back to those 5 points. Number one, talk less. use the 80-20 rule when you're interviewing. Get them talking so that they can tell you about who they are. Number two, talk about core values and what they mean to you, and assess whether or not they've been anywhere that they've been an organization where core values are truly alive. Number three, get those core value stories. Go one by one with your core values. Ask them about what they think they mean and have them tell stories about times where they had to demonstrate that value in as much detail as they'll give you. And then number four, go back to that question. We're down to 2 candidates. We've decided to go with the other person. Why did we do that? That'll give you a lot of really great information on who they are and how well they think and react to those tough situations. And then finally, use that 3-point assessment. Can they do the work? Will they do the work? In team fit, 0 to 10 scores on each of those, and put the information in the score. You don't need to have any detail or subtext as it relates to that. And then teach your team how to do this. Interviewing is a skill that needs to be taught and coached and over time, because a lot of us, there's not a whole lot. If you're not in HR, you're not going to get a whole lot of interviewing technique from school or even experience. Go learn. And if you do those few things, you're going to set yourself up for success and fill that funnel with team fit first, and then you move on to the individual assessments. Okie doke. Thanks, everybody. There'll be a recap coming out, as well as this will be available on petracoach.com in probably the next day or two. So keep your eye on that. Also, got other great programming coming up. I know we've got another, we've got the Ascent coming up next Tuesday on the 27th. It's an all-day event. We're going to cover a whole lot of different topics from a lot of my friends here, my team and family members here at Petra. I didn't say the colleague word on purpose. Are going to be talking about a lot of different subjects and deep diving into different things as it relates to the methodology that we coach around in the Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up. And then we've got more of these that are coming up. I know Barrett Ersich's coming up talking about eliminating some bottlenecks in your business, and a lot more programming. So stay tuned to emails coming from us, as well as pay attention to petracoach.com to get all the up-to-date information on programming. And on that note, thanks everybody. If you have any questions, reach out to me, and we'll see you next time.